very good morning to you. It is just past 9 o'clock. This is NTV Today. I'm your host, Smriti Vidyarthi. Of course, we'll bring you everything you need to know from across the country. Today, the focus of the conversation in studio will be about the education situation in schools across the country. This conversation is based on an article in page 4 and 5 of yesterday's Daily Nation. The headline was "Maths Under a Tree, Lunch in the Wild, the hits and misses of the 100% transition." So I'll have two guests with me in studio, and then my colleague NTV's Oko Okusa will also contribute to the conversation from the lakeside city of Kisumu. That's just a part of the show. Of course, we will bring you our correspondents from across the country, and that includes NTV's Martin Mwara, who is live in Murang'a. We also hope to have Benedict Juang, who is in Homa Bay, and Mr. Mwasame in Kakamega, and also NTV's Lois Wangoi in Eldoret. And of course, my colleagues here in Nairobi will be covering various events. I'll bring you up to speed with all the various press conferences that are happening. It is quite a lot. But for now, though, let's cross over briefly to NTV's Martin Mwara. Martin, what do you have for us today? Also looking at the education sector, no doubt.
Yes, good morning, Smriti. As you have rightly said, you are coming from County 021, that is Murang'a County. As you can see, you're on the streets of Murang'a. But before I come to our topic of today, I just want to give you a sneak peek of what is happening in our county today. Today at around 10, we're expecting that the area governor, who is Mongo area, will be launching, 200 nurses. He'll be introducing 200 nurses to the public who have been contracted who have been taken for 2 years. They're supposed to be to help other nurses who are in the hospital, just to keep to try and cut the pressure which is at the hospitals. And something else that is happening in this county is that of late there have been cases of animals being unknown wild animals attacking cattle, attacking sheep, attacking goats. This thing is worrying residents, and they're asking KWS just to come and try and to see if they can nab the animal, because they are fearing that some of the children who go to school very early in the morning can be victims. They are now asking if KWS can come and trap, because so far the animal has killed over 50 sheep and over 20 goats. So they're asking if the KWS can come and kindly help them before the animal starts attacking human beings. On our topic for today, which is about transition to high school, this region, Murang'a, is one of the regions that's topped in the country for 100% transition to high school. Currently, as we're speaking, by February 1st, Smriti, I can categorically tell you that 96% of students who cleared class 8 last year transited to Form 1. But this thing has come, it has come with its own challenges. I think maybe if you were able to read on yesterday's newspaper, you could see that the principals from this region are complaining of, yes, we have the students, but we don't have the space. We don't have the enough facilities like dormitories, classes. Now they're asking the government if it can come up with, it can put up resources or put up new classrooms, and so that they can be able to accommodate. This region, this region, that is Central Region, we saw new 112,000 students, over 112,000 students new who transited to high school. But I will be talking to parents, and I'll be, to tell me maybe if they think what is the problem and how the government can arrest. Yes, many of them are happy about it. They are very happy about it. But the problem is the challenges that has come up with it. It's a new program. Yes, they are teething challenges, but we hope the government will come up with a solution. Smriti, I'll be coming back to you shortly with the parents. Back to you.
Martin, thank you. NTV's Martin Mara coming to us live from the county of Muranga. Clearly plenty happening in that county, and as Martin mentioned, there are several challenges around the issue of the 100% transition rate, and we will delve deeper into that shortly. Later in this broadcast, as always, we'll also bring you the entertainment news, but let me just take you through some of the events happening today that we will be following closely. The Speaker of the National Assembly, Justin Muturi, will hold a press conference in his boardroom at some point this morning. He will be meeting with the Speaker of the Serbia National Assembly, who is visiting. Also, the Health Committee will, at about 9:30 this morning, if they keep time, will speak about the presidential memorandum on health laws. The Committee on Environment and Natural Resources will also meet today, and they will be discussing the 2019 budget policy statement. The Departmental Committee on Energy will also meet, and they are set to discuss the 2019-2020 budget policy statement by the Parliamentary Budget Office. They'll also discuss the introduction to the Nuclear Regulatory Bill 2018. And the Lands Committee are also set to meet. They will be discussing, again, the budget policy statement. So really, that is a big focus today. The National Assembly Departmental Committee are meeting on the Sports, Culture and Tourism Department, rather. And the Public Investments Committee are holding a sitting to examine audited accounts of the Kenya Airports Authority, and the meeting will be held at the main Parliament buildings. So we will be keeping an eye on these meetings and their developments, and we'll bring you up to speed as and when we get the details. All right, before we cross over to my interview this morning, let's bring you some stories that have been making headlines. And one of them is that the government will not include the capturing of DNA samples or retinal scans during the actual collection of the information into the National Integrated Identification Management System, or NIMS. And the 5-day pilot exercise was rolled out yesterday in 15 counties. And the Interior Principal Secretary Karanja Kibicho officiated the exercise in Nyandarua, from where Bridget Ngana now reports.
From 15th March 2019, Kenyans will transition from having numerous government-issued cards to one under the National Integrated Identification Management System, commonly referred to as the Huduma number.
We want Kenyans to get service in a convenient manner. There is no time you go to a bank and you want a loan and you are not asked about 100 things.
However, the government is struggling with misinformation that the exercise will record the DNA data of the population without its knowledge.
We are just taking a digital photograph using a camera that is inbuilt in the kit that we are having. We'll take digital biometric of the 10 fingers, nothing else.
The Ministry of Interior says that the Huduma number will not only help government plan and allocate resources, disburse social welfare funds, but also aid in keeping tabs on those who might pose a threat to national security. The exercise was rolled out in Nairobi, Kiambu, Uasin Gishu, Kajiado, Baringo, Marsabit, Embu, Makueni, Busia, Kilifi, Tana River, and here in Nyandarua, the residents seemed receptive.
Hiyo single number itasaidia kufupisha zile documents mingi tunabeba.
Hatutakuwa tukiharibu wakati kwenda katika kila ofisi au mambo ya complication ya kwamba lazima utoe duplicate hii.
Kenyans of all age cadres will be documented during the 45-day mass registration. As the 15 counties commence the piloting of the NIMS, commonly known as the Huduma number, here in Nyandarua County, the residents did turn up for this test run, with the national government saying that when this exercise officially kicks off, every Kenyan will be required to present themselves at the registration stations. Bridget Ngana, NTV, Nyandarua.
All right, so that was Bridget Ngana reporting on the developments from the NIMS system. Elsewhere, the Nurses Union Secretary General Seth Panyako and his team have been ordered to appear before the court next week to answer to charges of contempt of court. The Employment and Labour Relations Court has summoned the union officials for failing to call off the nurses' strike. But Panyanko insists that the industrial action is on until the nurses' demands are met, adding that they will not relent even if he's jailed.
The heat of the nurses' strike is rising despite the differing developments in the counties. However, the Employment and Labour Relations Court has ordered the Kenya National Union of Nurses Secretary General Seth Panyako and other union officials to present themselves before court on the 26th of February, as they have been found to be in contempt of court for defying orders to suspend the nurses' strike. The unrelating Panyako was in Nakuru, joining the county's nurses as they joined the strike.
Yes. The strike is intact. Wacha hii wadanganya nyinyi atu watu wamerudi kazi. Hakuna mtu amerudi kazi. Kuna wale wachache walisaini makaratasi na wakarudi.
Panyako has urged the government to honor their demands to avoid a crisis in public hospitals. He has, however, signed a collective bargaining agreement with the Tenwak Mission Hospital, as he has asked the national government to consider subsidizing services offered by mission hospitals. In Tana River, Siaya, Kakamega, Bomet, Busia and Narok County, the nurses also joined the strike. The Narok officials accused the county government of lack of will to address nurses' issues despite a strike notice issued in November last year. Meanwhile, in a bid to avoid industrial action by medical workers at the Moi Teaching and Referral Hospital, MTRH has signed a collective bargaining agreement with the Kenya Medical Practitioners and Dentists Union. This is set to see the referral facilities stay clear of doctors' strikes for the next 4 years at the least. Halima Gongo, NTV.
Right, as I mentioned at the top of the hour, we are also live from Migori County with my colleague Bernard Ojwang. Bernard, good to have you on board this morning. What can you tell us about the education sector there in Migori County?
Well, I thank you very much, Smriti. We are live here in Mariwa Trading Center. Remember, people seated just here with me. I have one of the education is the retired head teacher from one of the institutions here, and also I have a parent here. Remember, Smriti, over around 1 million standard 8 leavers have this year have joined Form 1 following the ongoing 100% primary and primary to secondary transition. And of course, it is an initiative that was started by then Minister for Education, Fred Matiang'i, that is back in the year 2014. And of course, it is something that is currently going on, and it has raised many questions as parents are asking that the ongoing transition is going to give them a lot of problem, as they say that it is going to introduce again the issue of rambies in school. And of course, we'll be talking to them. Just tell me how now. And to start with is, you'll start with your name. Tell us, what do you think about this issue of 100% primary to secondary transition?
Yes, I'm Councillor Martin Ondong and a parent. Actually, this is our community. The question that is actually given to me, I want to say that it is 50-50. That is both sides. It is a plus to the parents, and it is also a plus to the government. But let me say a reality that is there. A 100% transition pupils from primary to secondary is going to give a big burden actually to the parents. I think the government had a good idea, but the scheming was not good. Reason number one, when now we have a big population in schools, and more so the institutions around this place, I know very well that they lack classrooms, that is infrastructures. It forces some schools, actually the students are under the tree. And this one is going to bring their rambi and some kind of extra taxes actually from the principals, so that the students would get comfort in school.
What do you think could have been done?
I think what could have been done, number one, there's a problem of teachers. Let me say of teacher. That is the teacher in the school. How do you expect 1,000 in a school with only 6 TSC teachers? So the government could have actually, number one, do away with the problem of teachers population. and that is teachers were on the students. That is one. Number two, the government would have come out to put up structures because they know very well that the 100 million, how many classrooms in each school. And this one they are not doing. And then already the parents have been called. I've been even called into some schools to see how we can raise and get classrooms. And even the teachers, houses. So it is a burden to parents.
Well, thank you very much. Yes. You as one of the educationists from this region, 100% transition from primary to secondary school. And what do you think about this? Do you think it is going to materialize?
First of all, my name is Joseph Juma Olilo. And this is a trial and error method. The government is doing something which may not be fruitful. For one, it is not easy for them, for the government, to take 100%. 100% means that even people, the pupils or the students who are below the standard, plus the pupils or students who are of the average, plus the pupils or students who are above the average, you put them together and teach them, the outcome may not be that useful. Two, it is the government looked before it leaped. You look before you leap, but they did the opposite. Because, first of all, they should have put the buildings ready for this number of students to go and learn. If that is done, the better. Above all, the teachers, the number of teachers are few, had been few in the past. Now, if they are given 100%, do you think they will work and give a very good product? No. Because even in the Bible it is said, many are called but few are chosen. In education, we put them in a class, very many of them, and we choose the best ones so that Kenya can have the outcome of the pupils that can deliver. In this case, the teaching may not be possible.
Mwalimu, you are talking about the interfering with education. What do you mean? Because you are talking mixing both those pupils who didn't perform well and those who performed well. You mix them together. What do you think? What do you mean here? Are you talking about interfering with the education system of Kenya?
What I mean is this. It is not. It is like this. If you put the clever ones above the average and the ones who are below the average, no, you cannot give them proper education. I'm talking on education side. Also, it will inconvenience parents because they will need to raise money to get the buildings which ought to have been done before. You see? So, on the side of parents, as a parents, I know that it is very difficult. And I may not be pleased for my child who should have repeated a class to be pushed ahead so that he can just go. I don't know what the government really meant for this. It is a thing which I think will not succeed for the first time.
Do you think the government could have come up with a better idea or at least to cover the issue of 100% transition? Because you've heard from Walimu, they are saying that it is going to interfere with the education system of Kenya. How?
It is going to interfere with the education. Let me say the quality. Because generally what we need at the end of it is the quality, the brain quality that comes from the school. There is actually, it is not just a matter of coming from primary to secondary for the sake of it. We need quality in this country. And I think the best thing the government would have done, not 100 transition to the secondary school. They would have actually seen that after the result of KCPE, then for which type of students, actually which marks, they would have given opportunity going to secondary. And the rest, they take to the vocational training centers. Actually, let them subdivide. The 100% they are talking about is from primary to secondary. But you see, at the end of it, all these, maybe the ones that did not do well in primary, the KCPE, will get E. And at the end of it, the government, Kenya, also is not ready actually to adhere with the E issues. They talk of certificate. So I think the government should get prepared and see the quality after the results. This category of students, these marks should go to this institution.
But the government is saying that they are ready.
They are ready, but they didn't think before. If they could have thought of it before, it could just work. In the most advanced countries, it may work. But in Kenya, it may not work, simply because we have not prepared to know that this child is good at this thing. You know, that is why there are vocational institutions. If all of them can be given the opportunity of what they are good at, then they can be given to go to vocational. Some may not even need to go to secondary schools. Some may even join seminary education. Some may become sisters in other institutions, can become priests even. So there are so many institutions that they may not be given that they go to any secondary school.
Well, thank you. 100% transition. Are you for the idea, you as a parent?
In fact, I'm for the idea. Because actually before, we had a lot of students hanging within the community. I just feel it is good, but let the government sit and get the right way, the best way that would give a quality to the parents and the country itself.
Are you for the idea, 100% transition?
I'm not for the idea. The idea should have been to give a child what a child deserves, instead of throwing them to secondary schools and let them be taught in secondary schools. And the subjects they are going to be given is similar, it's the same. So it is better to know what a child is good at, so that can be given or can be taken to an institution where he's going. There is not any child who is stupid. I know they are clever, all of them. Some are slow learners, some are quick learners. Some are good even in culling airs, in doing work, in carpentry, in masonry, not to any secondary school, but they should be given good schools for them.
Well, thank you very much. As Smriti, you've just heard from the parents here, and also one of the educationists here speaking. They are saying that they are not for the idea. He himself is saying he's not for the idea because he's not. The government could have come up with an idea of maybe identifying the best course for these students who didn't make it in class 8, and also. You've just heard from them, they are saying that it's going to be a burden to parents, because it is going to force parents at least to dig deep into their pockets, so as at least to put up structures at school. And here you've just heard from him, said they have started receiving calls from schools that they need to have meetings so as more classrooms are put in place. Back to you.
All right, Bernard Ojwang and your guests, thanks very much for contributing to the conversation this morning. Much appreciated. Well, the Education Cabinet Secretary Amina Mohammed had something to say on the issue. Let's listen in.
Between the 7th and 11th of January next year, all pupils who sat the 2018 Kenya Certificate of Primary Education examination are expected to have reported to their respective schools. It is the second group the government is targeting in the 100% transition policy.
We'll work with county and sub-county education officials to ensure that no child is locked out of secondary education owing to factors removed from his or her ability to continue with learning. In this regard, ladies and gentlemen, ministry officials will file accurate daily returns on the status of reporting to schools until we attain 100% transition.
The Ministry of Education is in the process of placing over 1 million candidates in secondary schools. This number excludes refugees, adult learners, absentee candidates, private candidates above the age of 18, and inmates. But they will be accommodated as follows. There are 12,045 places available for refugees in Kakuma and Dadaab camps. 356 centers with capacity of 11,500 spaces will cater for adult learners and private candidates above the age of 18. But since the 100% transition policy began to be implemented this year, a number of challenges threatening retention of students in secondary schools have popped up. The Ministry of Education has identified pointers that threaten the success of the policy, and they are teenage pregnancies, early marriages, insecurity, inhibitive cultural practices, indirect costs of secondary education, and extreme poverty in households, especially in arid and semi-arid areas.
I'm directing education officials in all our counties to map out the 2018 KCPE candidates who became mothers in the course of the year and make special arrangements for them to transition to Form 1.
This year, the government effected the free-day secondary school education program in a bid to accommodate more students in schools. Day-wing programs were started in 19 selected schools, and there are plans to expand the program to other schools countrywide. Due to this, funds were set aside to expand existing infrastructure in schools to accommodate the rising number of students transitioning from primary to secondary schools.
I want to sound a clear warning to head teachers to desist from introducing any legal fees and levies. If allowed to take root, illegal levies will frustrate the attainment of the 100% transition and deny learners the right to education.
From January next year, the Ministry of Education will provide 16 billion shillings towards infrastructure improvement for public day secondary schools.
We shall do all that it takes to make sure that you get your resources in good time so that we can start the year in facilitating our students by making sure that we release our capitation in good time.
Teacher shortage is another impediment to achieving 100% transition to secondary schools.
We made a proposal to recruit 12,626 annually for the next 4 years since 2018 at a cost of 8.3 billion.
Even with the teething problems experienced in the first year of free-day secondary education, the government is keen on achieving it.
Safari, we will be asking the chief and the assistant chief why these children have not gone to Form 1.
All Form 1s will be receiving free textbooks of course subjects. Sharon Baranga, NTV.
All right, and that issue forms the basis of our conversation this morning in studio. Joining me to delve deeper into the issue is Janet Oko. She is the former Nairobi County Education CEC, and also Omboko Milemba. He is the MP for Emuhaya. Pleasure to have you both with us, and welcome to the show.
Thank you.
The facts really are shocking for many, but for some it's not a big surprise. Mr. Omboko, I'll start with you. What do you make of the fact that schools are congested? There are several students sharing a space that just isn't big enough for them.
Oh, thank you. I'm also the national chairman of CUPET for the teachers in Kenya. Right. And I think the 100% transition to second schools is not come as a surprise. This was courtesy of long-term planning. And the long-term planning began with making of the law. And this law, I'm happy I'm with Janet here. We made the law with Janet because this is when we made the new Education Act under the late Mutula Kilonzo. And it was decided that now basic education was framed from ECD to second school. So that became basic education. And then in that particular law, we said that basic education shall not only be free, but shall be compulsory. So I think where we have reached is that we are at the stage of implementing what we made as a law about 7 years or 5 years thereabout. But I can see many players are forgetting that and are imagining that the new players on the front line, maybe like Matiangi and Amina, are the ones coming up with this policy. No, this was a long-term project. And therefore, I think the government should have been more than ready for this particular project moving forward. And therefore, I support it 100%, that we should have 100% transition from primary to secondary. Remember, if you go back into the annals of education, strong education is like Michael Todaro argued that basic education is the business of the government. It's not the business of the individual. But when you go high to the university, then it becomes your own individual, because the benefits of higher education is more to the individual than it is to the country per se. So the government is trying to implement basic education. But now, the challenge is that the government is unwilling to put more money in the education sector in order to implement this policy. Now, what goes to schools is 22,000 for every learner in the day school. But now we are implementing the free, the 100% transition without increasing those amounts. So what have they done? The new players like Waziri Amina are now saying that of the 22,240 that is per capita per child in a day school, they are now carving about 6,000 from that particular amount and taking it to a voted called M&I. That is, it's to do with improvement and something like that. Mm. And then they are taking about 1,300 and taking it to NHIF. And then they are taking another 900 and taking it to something else.
Right.
They are taking 200 and taking it to SMASI. They are taking 4,600 and taking it to textbooks. And they are managing the textbooks.
Right.
So we are using the same amount we had for the child 7 years ago to implement the 100% transition and even to build infrastructure.
Okay, let me
So the challenge we have is that we don't have infrastructure in schools.
All right, let me bring Janet into this. As one of the planners of this 100% transition rate, did you foresee any of these challenges?
I agree with Mheshimiwa here up to a certain extent. When he starts talking about the money, of course, we disagree. But I think in terms of the background, we are not expecting that this has caught the government off guard. And I think some of the things we are seeing is what we have been saying, that literally a good number of people that we call government officers have been sleeping on the job. And it only takes a time like now when someone like Matiang'i comes and gives life you know, to a policy that has existed but has been on the shelf, a law that all of us formed, because apart from the Basic Education Act of 2013, it is the Constitution of Kenya that makes education a right that cannot be taken away by anybody from the child. And so when the CS Matiang'i came in, you can see a progressive, you know, someone that, you know, drifts away from the usual bureaucratic operations of government and says, hey, look here, this is a commitment that we have made as a country that every child must go to school. So what are we doing about it? So I really thank God that it is happening now. You know, so many people are saying that we are not prepared, but we never get prepared as a country. Let's get all the children in school like we did in 2003 when we said let every child come back to school.
But is it really fair to have these children in school in such circumstances where they are cramped, dormitories are being used as classrooms?
And I throw the question back at you, what is fair? Who is supposed to be left at home? Who should be, you know, who should be home?
Right.
No child should be at home. I think that is the first statement.
But are they benefiting?
Every child
do you believe they are really benefiting from education if they're in these kind of circumstances?
That is the second level of argument. But I think insofar as we are concerned, no child should be at home. In fact, the place of the child is in school. And that is, it is not me who is saying, it is our laws that we have signed as a people. But you know, the question is here, that we've supervised a lot of mismanagement of government sectors doesn't mean that we cannot start from somewhere. We can always start from today and then go learning, you know, our ways as we go up. And just speaking about it, think about a school like Mangu High School, for example. Thinking about an entire 200-acre piece of land and thinking that it can only be occupied by 600 boys, I think it is ridiculous. It is bad planning on our part. And it is time that we actually looked at the education sector and we asked, what can we do? We have a lot of resources with the sectors, but and I want to disagree somewhere with Omboko.
Disagree with me, I know whenever
because
you
it's
see me,
money.
disagree.
No, it's a question of money, because we have also not used resources in the right way. Yeah. Look at Omboko here saying that the 22,000 Kenya bob is not enough. While we know that it is a government that has just increased that by 33%, and this is coming again as a backdrop of schools that were even charging up to 120,000.
But do you think it's enough?
They did not expand. When they were charging 120, they did not expand the schools.
I thought you should tell Kenyans that you and I also sat somewhere and increased that amount in a task force. I don't know. In that task force, we actually allocated money for every voter. Hey, you wake up. And we actually were working with the Mwiria.
In the total is
every of the 22,240 we have allocated it for workers in school, for what in school.
Correct.
So we don't have any extra money for infrastructure from that park. You are there, now are there, under Mwiria report, please.
What is the?
So what are you saying? Are you saying that we can still use what we allocated for every voted to build infrastructure in schools? Yet we actually allocated the 22,000.
Right.
Every money.
But why was no money allocated to infrastructure?
I think that's where now Janet is right, that the government should have planned ahead, and as we now approach the 100% transition, which is now being implemented, then we should have added more money to schools. Currently, I've done a bill in Parliament. It's not a bill, it's a motion. And I'm saying that, hey, what's happening is that majority of the learners who are being absorbed by the 100% transition are going to day schools. So I want it to be mandatory for the ministry to take 70% of the monies for infrastructure to the day schools. Right. But I also want the ministry to go to the exchequer, to come to the education committee, and actually ask for more money for infrastructure. And I want further that money to be sent to schools as per child, the way we send there per capita, so that we don't have a situation whereby in the ministry we have just a few people who have the leverage of deciding which school to give and which school not to give. And if we go that direction, as I concluded, then we shall be moving away from the issue of just equality to equity, and that will work.
So you agree with that? You would support that motion?
I'm agreeing with him to the extent that, and that's why I began by really, but really, no. It's really a brilliant idea, because look at what is happening. The government in the past has been over-investing in about 20% of children, because national schools really takes only 20%. So how about the 80%? And I think my really great concern is about the 65% that go to the day schools, because that is where you'd expect the biggest, investment to be taken, considering that it is taking the majority, and consider that there has not been a lot of investment, at the day school level. And that is why we are saying, number one, we support the government policy of 100% transition. It is long overdue. This is what the government should have done right after the implementation of the Constitution. But then again, we are saying, can we look at this against effectiveness and efficient use of resources as a Ministry of Education? How much are we investing? Because I was a CEC for education in Nairobi, for example, and I would tell you we have 205 public primary schools. And if you're talking about every child, going straight to a secondary school, we would expect at least at minimum to have the same number of secondary schools, for example, so that we can at least say that all Nairobi children can at least be accommodated. But how many secondary schools do we have in Nairobi? And therefore, when you're saying that we can achieve 100% transition, we want to encourage the government that, yes, that is the right step to take. But can we also work together in owning the facts?
It's not a matter of making every primary school maybe to be a second school. But and you had argued very well earlier on. Look at Mangu. Mangu has a lot of land, but they are only hosting about 600 children. We could expand the existing second schools by creating more infrastructure, more classes, more laboratories, more dormitories. And in so doing, then we would actually absorb these children. Right. So still, going forward, the number of second schools will be slightly less.
Right. And it's not just about the expansion of infrastructure either. Teachers are suffering as well, because if you look at the ratio between teachers and students, it is massive. There is a lot of pressure on teachers. How can they be helped?
Maybe let's have Janet speak on that first.
No, absolutely, because I think, teaching, the biggest input, I would want to say that so that Omboko and I are in good books. But I think for the seriousness of it, yes, as we advance the numbers, in every classroom, we would expect the, an adjustment in the number of teachers. But I also said that this is the same country that came from 2003. When we said that let every child come to school. I want to say that we begin from somewhere, because the biggest problem is not beginning. At least we are here. Now we can actually be able to say, look, we have the surge is so much, we need teachers. He sits in Parliament, they can actually be able to allocate more money to teachers. We agree that yes, the influx creates some confusion and also pressure on certain resources, including the teacher resource. But it doesn't mean that we are not going to bring children to school until such a time when we shall have a parity as to the required ratio of teacher and pupil. No, that is not the way to go.
But then isn't that a lot of pressure on a teacher? And really, is this adding value to the pupil?
And that's
and
why
is
I
it
disagree
effective?
with Janet, because Janet says we take the children to school and we
Regardless
see
of the
if we can just have some education.
Yeah.
But she doesn't care
It's not quality.
whether there's quality education in schools or not, so long as they are there.
If you answered my question, out of those children that have been taken to Mangu, which one would you prefer? They were home.
Would be to actually beef up our schools with enough teachers, and these enough teachers then would be able to give quality education, because we are not looking forward to just elimu bora elimu lakini elimu bora, and therefore the teacher situation should also be enhanced. I'm looking forward to see the Teacher Service Commission, because it's now dealing with Parliament separately, not through the ministry. There's a commission to come to the Education Committee, and the Education Committee should vote for more money to employ more teachers. We had envisaged, and in fact the document we did, and where Janet and I were, we have really worked in this sector together with her. We were saying that we should employ about 20,000 teachers per year for us to just bridge the gap of the 100% transition. Unfortunately, we have not been able to do that. To date, we are still employing 5,000. And even the 5,000 we are employing, it's me who moved a motion in Parliament to actually slice what was the budget for NYS by about 8 billion, or was it 7 billion? And that's how we got money for the teachers, because originally there was no any budget for employment of teachers. So the government has to wake up and actually invest in education more seriously. Invest in resource, teacher resource, because that's the key resource, then invest in infrastructure. This will not take too long. 4 years of just pumping money into that particular sector, we shall have a breakthrough.
Janet, why has it been so difficult for the government to do just that? Do they not have the will? Is corruption part of this? What is the issue? Why are we always fighting for money in the education sector?
No, I think, and I would say this because proudly, as he says, we've been part of this, for a very long time. And I want to say that with different types of leadership, we get different types of results. I want to really appreciate the period between 2015 and 2016, because that point in time, the education sector made tremendous progress on things that we only thought that when we were doing the Basic Education Act, we just thought that we were just imagining based on what happens, the best practices around Africa and, and anywhere else. Yeah. But there came some leadership that really believed in the documents and really said that, no, we want to take this sector from where we are to where we have contemplated through the various policies that we have and through the various laws that we have. And that is why when we started seeing the education sector moving, I still want to believe that the inspiration is still there and that the sector can be able to maintain that consistent movement, because even this is a very bold move. I remember verbatim that it was my word that let the chiefs take responsibility for not taking children to school. And it is there in the Basic Education Act. And now seeing the Ministry of Interior addressing the issue and putting it squarely on the chiefs, I think for me, it's a very proud moment, for us. Yes, there is a downside because we expected all these adjustments and movement in policies and laws to be backed by resource allocation.
But not the chiefs manage policy of education.
It is, go and change the Basic Education Act, because it is the act that says the chief should account for every child.
And the moderator, we are reminding each other, because we were together, we actually made policy to be managed by the county education boards. And for the first time, we went ahead and created a county education board that had professionals. You remember that. Originally, county education boards were chaired by the DC. So we said, all right, the DC and the chiefs can execute what we call the idea of execution. But policy per se, we leave it to professionals. And it has been working well. Why I interjected you, I'm sorry, was currently we are also deviating. When Matiang'i came in and has left it to Amina, he's deviating so that we bring back the chiefs and the DC to manage policy at the county. As I talk now, let me give more information. The county education boards are no longer there. They ceased working about 2 years ago and they have not been re-established. The school education boards are not there, both primary and secondary. They ceased working 1 year ago. And what we have seen is a little bit of an attempt to have the DC start managing education. I think for me, we shall not be supporting.
I think I understand where he's coming from,
Right.
you know. It's really easy for where he comes from, his constituency, to try and, you know, but it is in the Basic Education Act.
Yeah.
If you don't want to follow that, then we can only revise the Basic Education Act. This is what it says.
I'm in agreement
that
with
in
you.
the situation that a child who is supposed to be in a school
Yeah.
is not in school,
Chief.
it is the head teacher that now reports to the chief.
Very well.
Because the chief, we should account. This is in an attempt to account for every child.
Very good.
And it has been that the chiefs have been sleeping on their jobs. When you walk around, because I've walked around the city, and you find so many children, I have myself literally walked to so many chiefs camps, and I have asked them, this is your child. Do you know the parents? Do you know their parents? Yeah. And why are they not in school? You know, I think that, and you know, the
I'm
moment we
supporting you
agree,
100%.
the moment we agree
Say something
that we
about
cannot
policy.
work, that we cannot run education in a silo, that we say this is education, it must be run by people who are educated. We need everybody else. We need the security personnel.
Yeah.
We need the administration, so that then we can all be able to run, you know, the sector together.
And I agree, but she should agree that we are in agreement. But I want the round pegs to be put in round holes. That policy remain to the professionals, like it was in law, and then implementation or execution.
And you see where we are agreeing is that the professionals does not only mean teachers. Chiefs are professionals in the security and administration subsector, which is also important.
Could I
So
improve my argument? My argument
Maybe.
is not just professional in
Maybe.
terms of a professional, because when you define a professional, then it's so vast. Everybody's a professional, but I thought it should be left in professionals who have a line or a liking to education.
Okay.
They would manage education
Right.
better. And what we had done, Janet, was we had even invested a lot on the retired veterans who had managed education. You remember brothers like Oyaya who are here managing education. They are the ones managing those county education boards. And Madam Onyuka, who was here managing. So those are real guys who could generate policy from the ground. And you can look it from where you come from. They are there. They do a very good job. But don't allow the DC or the chief to go and give policy.
Okay,
So we are almost degenerating again into the old system, where we had education policy being generated by the DC. That's the only difference we have. But in terms of implementation, 100% total in agreement with you.
Okay, well, we need to release you soon, but before we do, a lot of the potential solutions are long-term solutions. We're not going to see changes overnight. In your opinion, are there any short-term, real solutions that can save this situation of children learning under a tree?
Thank you. Because one, I'm a total supporter of 100% transition. And I would stand on any podium to say that. So I know the children are in school, but the schools do not have the infrastructure, and they don't have the teachers. As a quick fix is one for the Ministry of Education to get at least some more funding from the exchequer to support at least one stream in every school. Another quick solution would be to put a little bit more money in the day schools and not in the national schools. I'm a representative of all the teachers, but I know there's more pressure in the day schools. Another quick fix would be to relook at the textbook policy. We are currently putting too many books in schools. And the principals or the head teachers had a problem managing schools, managing books, because they were given the money and then they would do some games with them that actually was more of corrupt. I must own that. I'm a teacher representative. But when we took it to the national level, we didn't devolve it. The national team, again, is doing the same thing. They have gone and agreed with suppliers of books, and they're dumping books in schools. Schools that are not having home science are having home science. Schools with 100 pupils are getting 250 books. And it's like the more you supply, the more you are paid. The checkpoint is the same. Hey, you, I must fix that. We could stop this. And I've already consulted the head teacher. They are saying we could go slow on this, and if we don't have any money per se, we could buy this money into infrastructure development for a while, so that our children are in school, and then we come back to textbooks again.
All right.
You know why I'm so
an opportunity before Omboko leaves to either agree or disagree.
I've become more moderated.
I like this. And you know why I'm excited? An admission by Omboko that we have more books in schools
than we need.
Yeah, it's not a bad problem to have, really.
So you don't think it's a bad problem?
It's not a bad problem to have, considering that we were a situation where we did not have money in the banks, the money had been disbursed, but we did not have books.
But how is it not a bad problem if, for example, Omboko says that we have a school that doesn't teach home science, but there's home science books?
That's why I'm saying it's not a bad
power
problem
mechanics.
To have, because
they have power mechanic books.
We can learn from it. You know, we can learn from it, and we can do better. You know, but I think for me, I'm happy that any child, wherever they are holding a book. And you know, that's why I'm saying
Janet, what
it's
I was
really not a bad
from
problem
you
to have.
But isn't
before
that
even
just,
we go for a break or something like that, was for you to also be as blank as I am. I'm saying my team was not doing a good work.
Very good.
Why can't you say the team we gave the work is also not doing the good work?
Yes, and
that's all.
And you know,
you and I are good oversighters.
Let me tell you, we know where we have come from, and Omboko knows. He knows the difficulties that we've gone through to get ourselves here, and that's why we wouldn't beat ourselves so much. It's only been a year. So why can't we allow ourselves to see what happens next year? Because that's why we have M&D and L. You know, you monitor and you learn. So I think for me, and as you had asked a question about what are the quick fixes that I see, I want to say here that even other challenges that the parents are struggling with are not found in school. We need to move to the next level. Why are we still a country that is paying 20,000 for uniform? Yeah. You know, those are the problems. And when you see people asking chiefs, why are these children not in school? The problem in this country is not that parents do not want to take their children to school. It is because parents cannot afford to take their children to school. So until we address the cost of secondary education in this country, we will still find children not going to school because there are parents in this country who cannot afford. As we speak today, I know fundraising that are taking place this weekend. Every parent has been asked to contribute 10,000 shillings for Harambee. So if you don't have, and we have seen Amina very clearly saying that they are going to deal with illegal levies. And my question to her is, when are you going to deal with the illegal levies that are being collected each and every day? We would
Could
want
you give
the
Amina another question? Me and you now are one team. We also ask Amina that we don't want illegal levies, but we source for funds from the government to go and address the shortages in schools. Because where are the illegal levies going to? The illegal levies are going to now to try and put up classes. So we are degenerating back to the Moi era, where we had cost sharing. Already we have cost sharing of teachers. 30% of the teachers in second schools are employed by parents under BOMs. So we already back there. So when you now add them the burden of infrastructure, Janet, here, I'm a very moderated person these days. So trust me, we are adding them the burden of now again constructing classes.
And you see,
once a school doesn't have a class, the immediate person who is approached is the MP, is the chief, I want to appreciate their work, is the councillor, now called MCA, and then is the parent. So let the government, if it is giving us free day second school, give us free day second school.
And you see, part of the quick fixes, I looked forward, I was a CEC, you know, for a whole year and some months. I looked forward to a situation where we can have a conference with the Ministry of Education. The county governments have money, you know, and a good number of them are doing a few things here and there. But you see, the Ministry of Education, as the lead technocrat in the sector, could converge the counties and lobby them, and have, because like a county like Nairobi, for example, would be very interested in setting up its own schools, because as I said, Nairobi doesn't have especially boys
Janet,
schools.
see, we fix the law. I'm liking your idea. It has to fix the law, isn't it? You know, the law is the one that's gagging us to do education.
All right, we've got to take a break.
But if that is what we are saying, you know, these people just talk about the law. As we speak today, the county of Nairobi is spending 365 million Kenya bob on bursaries. Right. How is that not national government function? So where is this law that he's talking about that allows you to spend on bursaries and does not allow you to spend on construction of schools? So it's just people hiding under ambiguities, but we really need a lot of guidance from the Ministry of Education so that the counties can also be guided as to where to invest that gives us, all of us, maximum impact.
I thought we should just regularize the law so that we allow county governments to actually.
Are they disallowed? How would they spend on bursaries if they are disallowed?
Because some of the Nairobi is good where you are, but elsewhere they are hiding into the fact that education is a national.
I like the word hiding because that is it.
So we can just fix the law and then we allow them to actually take funds to schools.
Okay.
So this will not require a very serious argument.
All right. Okay, we've got to take a break. Thank you so much for your contribution, Omboko Milembe, the MP for Emuhaya and also the National Chair for Kupet, and all the best for your motion that you intend to present. Janet, you're still with us, and it is now time for a quick break on NTV Today. We're just about to hit 10 o'clock this morning. Stay with us, there's more to come. yesterday's Daily Nation, titled Maths Under a Tree, Lunch in the Wild. We have been discussing this topic with two of my guests, Janet Oko. She is, of course, the former Nairobi County Education CEC, and also with us was the MP for Emuhaya, Omboko Milemba, but we've had to release him now. So the conversation will continue with Janet shortly, but first, let's take you to Eldoret, where Lois Wangoi joins us now.
Many thanks and a very good morning to you. We are coming to you live from Eldoret here in the county of Uasin Gishu, a county that is also putting everything into practice to ensure 100% transition into secondary schools. Now, how is the practicability of the same, and what are the challenges in that particular provision by the Ministry of Education? Now, joining me will be Madam Lucy Barnetun. She is the principal of Morgosi Secondary School, and she will help put that particular matter into perspective. Thank you very much, Madam, for joining us on NTV. We appreciate for your time. How practical is this particular provision by the Ministry of Education?
Thank you very much, Madam. First of all, I want to say that the move is a noble one. It is ideal for our children in the sense that we are promoting the fact that we are giving an opportunity to all our children. So I think it is good. Apart from a few challenges that we have to consider, one of them is that some children come from very poor families, and some of them have already lost hope. However much you may want to bring them to school, already it's like their self-esteem has gone down, and it will take them more time to come to school. And once they come, they will have taken a lot of time because the parents have challenges of even providing simple things like the school uniform. Apart from that, we as teachers, we are also facing challenges in the sense that we have even encountered students who did their KCPE perhaps in 2017, 2016, and when you want to put their names in the system does not accept, so it becomes a challenge. Also, we've seen challenges in the sense that in terms of space, we have to have more desks and chairs for them, we have to have more space for them in the dormitories, we have to have more classrooms for them, and so many others. Even the toilets have to be increased. Yet we do not have the ability to increase these things at the same time when the children were coming in. So
and let me just cut you short. I want to believe you're talking about the infrastructural facilities in our education institutions. Are you of the opinion that the government would have prepared better to ensure that even as these 100% uptake is happening, then there are social amenities to support the same in our secondary schools?
Yes, I want to appreciate the fact that the government has been doing that, but the rate at which that is being increased may not match this transition. It should have been started a little bit earlier, and even teachers being prepared, even psychologically and what have you, because we're having so much problems, especially in the NEMIS, what you've heard about putting in data. Sometimes the parents even do not avail the certificates for the children so that you get the entry number for you to be able to enter the data about the child. Yeah, otherwise, I want to appreciate the fact that the government has also provided books. They've given us teachers, and I think that is a plus, in the sense that we are hopeful that every time there'll be more addition of the number of teachers availed. As for the books, I think the books are okay.
Okay, and so far, what are the trends in our school? For instance, you could give us an example of your school. Has this particular direction by the Ministry of Education seen more pupils now transition to secondary schools? Are the numbers on a high?
Not very high. you should also consider the fact that some schools have cut-offs that are also given by the ministry. For example, they can say the highest you can take is this and the lowest is that. Yeah. So some schools may not take everyone, but some have already done that, and there is over 100% transition in some schools, and I'm certain there are challenges there. Yeah.
And of course, among the challenges from here in the North Rift, social, cultural challenges. Some counties, and of course, I want to believe they're making tremendous steps, do face some social, cultural challenges, for instance, FGM and early marriages. So how do we ensure that this 100% transition to secondary schools is not affected by the same?
Of course, around where we are, I do not think the problem of FGM is a major problem, but there are other social factors. For example, attitude to education. Yeah, it's never a priority in some of our cultures. It comes maybe number 4. So there is a lot of work that should be done to sensitize the parents that actually education is an equalizer, so that they make it a priority and bring the children, all the children, back to school. I've noted also that in our culture, most of the, let me talk about the boy child. You find that it is easier for a parent to buy a motorbike for a boy instead of bringing them to school. So I think that is a culture that should be changed, so that all the children are brought to school, and that education is good. Not that when you have a motorbike, you are now capable of maybe being able to become rich or something, or being able to something like that. Thank you.
And finally, my last question would be, as teachers, do you feel you are adequately incorporated into this particular directive by the ministry, so that you also contribute towards the same, especially in speaking to the pupils who are transitioning to secondary school, to ensure that they also do really want to go to school? Because some may say, hey, me, I don't go to secondary school. Like you said, me, I want to be bought for a boda boda, or I want to go and do ABCD. Do you feel teachers were adequately equipped and provided for a platform where they could also contribute towards 100% transition to secondary schools?
I don't think teachers were much involved, but I think they are better placed to educate everyone, including the parents and even some of our leaders, that we need to prepare our people to see the sense in education, that it is actually good that everyone acquires this kind of education. So teachers are ready, and teachers are capable of preparing everyone, including the parents, such that even if they have the ability to, or let me talk in terms of, let's say, wealth, or they have the, so that they know where to put what they have, not to make education to be the last, to make education to be a priority. Because I'm talking from what I know, that education is never a priority where I come from. Yeah. For example, you can find someone, when it is a pre-wedding, maybe they can slaughter a bull, but when it is school fees, they'll never do it. They'll never sell it. But if it is a wedding, they may slaughter a bull. So we need to educate our people also, so that they can change and appreciate this effort that our government is trying to put across. Yeah.
Many thanks. We were speaking to Madam Lucy Barngetun. She is the principal of Murugusi Secondary School here in the county of Uasin Gishu. She notes that the 100% transition to secondary school is indeed a noble and a thoughtful idea from the government, but she is also of the opinion that the government should have prepared much better in terms of equipping teachers to facilitate the same, and also provision of infrastructure. For now, back to you in Nairobi.
All right, Lois Wangoi coming to us from Eldoret. Thank you. We now take you briefly to Busia, where NTV's Oko Okusa is standing by. Okusa, we believe that later this morning some head teachers from the private sector are set to have a meeting to discuss exactly what we're talking about. That is the 100% transition rate. What can you tell us on that?
Yes, Viti, where we are is Busia, as you mentioned there, and behind me are head teachers, delegates meeting conference, actually, the 14th annual conference of Kenya Primary School Heads Association Western Region chapter going on here in Busia, and they are deliberating on issues that affect the head teachers in primary schools around the country, and of course this part of Kenya, that is the Western region. But that aside, I'm also here with the County Director of Uwezo Kenya, that is Emmanuel Manyasa, who is going to share with us his thoughts regarding the 100% transition, which is the topic of today. Welcome, Emmanuel.
Thank you.
Let's start by you telling us briefly, what is your observation as far as this transition is concerned?
I think it is important that we do the 100% transition. It's a constitutional right for children to go through basic education, which it goes up to Form 4. But I think we have implemented it without planning, and so there is a bit of pressure now on secondary schools, too much population in the schools. And I think we have failed to learn from the experience we had when we were implementing free primary education in 2003 to indicate that we needed planning before we implement a project this mega. And I think it is important that the resources are pulled together quickly, because quality is going to be compromised if we continue as we are going.
The government is talking of 16 billion shillings to help improve the existing infrastructure in those public schools and to implement this 100% transition. Do you think that is enough?
First, that may not be enough, but let us get the 16% on the ground first and foremost, and let's see how much that can do. Because at the moment, we are just talking about the 16 billion. While children continue to sit under trees, while children continue to lack teachers, while teachers continue to face impossible classes. And let's remember that this is secondary education. We're going to need labs, we're going to need libraries, we're going to need dormitories in some of the schools. And that is a lot of expense and time required to put those infrastructure in place.
Besides infrastructure, TSC is also asking the government to employ additional 40,000 teachers. Do you think that will also help?
If that was to be done, it will help, but I don't know if the government has budget to employ that number of teachers right now. Yet that is very urgent. We can lack a classroom, we should never lack a teacher, because that is the basic ingredient in learning. So we need to have teachers. And that's why I think government didn't plan to implement it, because we should have started by hiring teachers before even moving to the transition. Yeah.
So some of these challenges you are bringing up, do you think they are surmountable? And how can they be surmounted?
The challenges are surmountable, but we need quick action and less talk. At the moment, we have talk and promises of what is going to be done. Children are in school, they need to learn. They are going through the years without learning, and that's a problem for us and for the country.
But do you think that, all in all, it is a good move as far as bringing education to a lot of pupils in Kenya is concerned?
According to the law, yes. According to the Constitution, yes. According to Basic Education Act, yes. Whether the decision to hurriedly implement was the right one, I don't agree. I think we could plan more before implementing. But the decision to implement 100% transition is correct. The manner in which we are implementing is what I have a problem with.
So in your opinion, how long should this have taken to be implemented successfully?
It didn't have to take long, we just needed to plan prior. We should have started this plan last year, put in place the teachers required, and started to put up the right infrastructure for these numbers. We assumed we were not going to get so many numbers into schools, and now we have the numbers into schools, and that is a problem.
Yeah. Briefly, just paint for us the picture in the schools right now.
A lot of teachers are going to behave the same way primary school teachers behaved in 2003, which is to just give up. Because you have numbers you can't manage the discipline, you can't pay attention to every child to understand, because children have different learning capacities. The teacher needs to identify that and give due consideration to every learner. When the learners are too many, the teacher behaves like someone who addresses a crowd. You come and speak and go away. You don't know whether there is learning or not. And that is what is likely to happen in these schools, and that will be catastrophic.
Thank you very much, Emmanuel. Thank you very much. Smriti, that is Emmanuel Manyasa, the country director of Uwezo Kenya, just sharing us with us his thoughts regarding the 100% transition, which is the topic of today. He's a bit in a hurry because supposed to be presenting right now, as you can see, he's just heading right straight to the podium. But those are his thoughts. He's spoken about issues to do with poor planning. He's suggesting that this is, as much as it is a good initiative, but it has been poorly planned, and therefore the hiccups that it's facing is as a result of that. And he has also mentioned something to do with the money that the government has allocated. We are talking of 16 billion shillings that the government has allocated to help improve the existing infrastructure in those public schools. But Emmanuel there says that that money might not be sufficient as far as implementation of this is concerned. Remember, there are more than 1 million students that have been absorbed in the public secondary schools countrywide, and that number, as we have heard from Emmanuel, has caused a sort of congestion in those existing schools because of lack of infrastructure. He's also spoken about lack of proper infrastructure as far as the implementation of this 100% transition is concerned. Back to you, Smriti.
NTV's Oko Okusa coming to us live from Busia. Thanks very much for that. All right, back in studio now with me. My guest is still here, Janet Oko. She is the former Nairobi County Education CEC. You were shaking your head when Okusa was speaking. Why?
Because in my view, we did not require even an extra day for us to plan. Why? Because this is not a realization that has come today. It is a Basic Education Act of 2013 and the Constitution of 2010. So in short, we've had a whopping 9 years, and so an extra day, an extra month, an extra year could not have given us different results. Thing is, we are Kenyans, we never plan, and I think it is highest time that the person in the president asks for a very good explanation as to why, since 2010 and today, we have not seen what planning, has been there. Because the only thing we are seeing now, we were talking about CS Matiang'i, who just came to the ministry in about a year, did a lot of stuff and has left. We now have Amina. But we have technocrats that sit in the ministry, have been there for 20 years, have been there even when we were making the act. What exactly are they about? What advice, what plans did they put in place? What preparedness? Because I think now it has now come from the high level. We are seeing this commitment coming from the ministers, and I'm sitting back and I'm wondering, are the ministry officers, committed as how we are seeing the ministers committed? And I think is a very big question. But let me say that what we need to do is all of us first need to develop the best attitude, because and I've asked and I would ask again, which child would you prefer they were left home so that the schools are not congested, yet every child must be in school? So I think that is the most critical question here. When you go to Mangu, now the population has grown from 600 to about 1,700. Right. Who would you prefer did not come to school so that at least you would enjoy the space? You would not have to teach an entire class of 70. And the answer is nobody. All of us are supposed to be here. And the problems we are seeing now of transition and the confusion, there is no responsibility of the parent. Right. The entire responsibility belongs to government, because it is the responsibility of government to expand the infrastructure. Right. It is the responsibility of government to make sure that there are enough teachers to take care of the population at school.
And on that point, what are your views on the Ministry of Education and the Education Cabinet Secretary that we have? Is she well placed to address these issues battling the education sector in the country?
Honestly, I would say that I really admire, the way she has really fitted, and seeing that, because everybody was worried that probably, the reforms that the CS Matiang'i had begun would probably flop at some point. But I really like the way she's coping. I really like her commitment, in terms of ensuring that all the policies that she has read and found at the Ministry of Education, at least some of them are, are implemented. And that is why I'm saying, including the education activists. Can all of us develop the best attitude? It does not help anybody now to say that this will not work, it will not work, because the thing is, this is where we were in 2003, when the President Kibaki said, let every child come back to school. And several years down the line, all of us are proud of that initiative. This is where we are now. We are beginning, because there was gross violation of the rights of so many. And I'm sitting here and I'm saying, even those that did not have this opportunity, for example, if you sat your exam last year and you did not have an opportunity, please go to the nearest school and get your opportunity to go to school. This thing, nobody should miss out, going to school. And so I'm looking at, for example, the next steps that Amina should do, very quickly. And as I said, I believe the national government is not tapping the resources that the county governments, so well. I'm looking at a beautiful conference, between the ministry and the county governments, and just wondering, how do we, all of us, help each other to solve this problem? Because it does not help anybody to say that this is a national government function and this is a county government function. The fact remains, if a child of Migori, for example, does not attend secondary school in Migori, they will come back to you as a county government when they are an unemployed youth, and there is very little you can do about him, because they already missed on their chances to probably, improve their lives. And I think if all of us looked at it from that perspective, then all of us can be able to, work together and develop the infrastructure, and also Parliament, because there are members of Parliament who are doing tremendous jobs, developing infrastructure down there. But you see, the Ministry of Education, as the head technocrat and as the one that understands and formulates the vision, should be able to rally all these people together and provide guidance. For example, in terms of saying, in Nairobi, how many more schools do we need so that we get to a comfortable situation where
we don't really have the space, do we? Not much space in Nairobi.
We have space, because right now the schools that are coming up some places in Roysambu are only sitting on about 3 acres of land. But you have Alliance sitting on an entire 200 acres of land. That could be 10 schools, for example. So I am a strong believer that we have everything that we need, only if we develop the right will and, to just walk all this talk.
Okay, let me just clarify something. So your point is that you believe all children should be in school, regardless of the quality of education that they're getting, and regardless of the access to facilities that they're getting, and regardless of the fact that they may be studying under a tree. You still think that they should be in school?
You are right, because I would rather, myself, a child is being attended by a teacher under a tree, as opposed to them being at home and missing that opportunity of being at school. It is only lately when schooling facilities have been made to look very sophisticated and all. If all of us, people of my age and probably older than me, if all of us would sit here and tell you the primary schools that we attended, a lot of them were mad world. And and we are here. So what happened? Really, what happened? Who said that a school must have all these stories and everything? I think let's get practical, because for me, the most critical thing is making sure that there is no child who will ever blame us or blame their parents for missing an opportunity of going to school. And this opportunity, when it is missed, is almost like milk. That it is spilled, you cannot collect it, especially for a girl. If you miss out on these 4 years, by the time we know it, you are in some marriage, you have 4 children, we really cannot take back your life and give you an opportunity to live your life the way it should have been lived in its fullness.
Okay. You talked about all of us helping each other, be it the national government, the county government, Parliament as well. Does the private sector have a role in this whatsoever?
Yeah, and I think much of the role that the private sector would play, of course, is because other than maybe philanthropy and probably maybe corporate social responsibility, I would still think that it is in the place of the Ministry of Education to cause more private investors to be interested in secondary school, investment. Why? Because you'll find that there's a lot of investment at the primary level, subsector, and at the ECD. But that shrinks as we get to the secondary school level. Why? Because probably a private investor would not get all this land, to be able to put up a good school. And also the investment at secondary school is a little bit, higher. So that's why I'm saying we would be looking at a situation where the Ministry of Education, for example, sits with the county government of Nairobi and identifies all these places where all this land because sometimes maybe government doesn't have the resources to put up all those things. It has happened in Liberia, it is happening in Accra. So we can have, negotiated partnerships with private investors that put up this school with this land, but then you're going to charge a little bit, the government can even, moderate the fees. Because truth of the matter is, a good number of parents in Kenya are now preferring, they prefer boarding facilities, and the government is not meeting doesn't pay.
Yeah.
Even this free secondary education, the government is clear that it doesn't pay for boarding facilities. But if you want to be a day scholar, then it is fully paid for. So those are some of the things that we would be expecting. So that when the CS is speaking to us, she's not only speaking to us about the enforcement of this, but she's also telling us what progress have they made. For example, how many more spaces have been created, you know, how much more resources have been set aside to expand, you know, these opportunities and so on and so forth, so that we even begin now to address other issues. As I said before, the only impediment of people taking children to school is not dislike. And I think it's only about 1% of Kenyans who probably would think that educating their children wouldn't be helpful. Otherwise, there's big consensus that this thing is helpful, you know, it's an equalizer, you know, marginalized children get opportunities through education. And so the biggest barrier the world over, recognized even by UNESCO, is levies at school level. That is the reason as to why many people are not taking their children to school. So the moment we address this issue of levies, and we become very serious about government policy of free day schooling, and we avoid all these other flimsy things, oh, uniform, you must come with 4 pairs, I don't know of what, the uniforms must have badges, so that a shirt is at 100 bob, or even 200 shillings in Gikomba, white shirt. But when it has the logo of the school, you have to buy it at 800 shillings. We really want to see the CS leading these discussions and having all of us agree as a country, how do we want to make secondary school affordable? Because I can bet you, taking a child to Form 1 in this country is very painful. And that is why many parents will even just leave it, because the mere imagination of it. And even when we were speaking about these partnerships, when we make it this cost effective, county governments will not have to spend on bursaries. Yeah, they won't have to spend on bursaries. So that money spent for bursaries can go towards, you know, infrastructural development that can have a longer term impact, you know, on all of us.
Okay. Janet, you are so passionate about the issue, very well versed, and you obviously have a lot of experience, but you are now the former Nairobi County Education CEC. Why? Why are you the former? Why are you not still in that position?
Oh yeah,
I had to ask because you are very passionate about it, but clearly there were no doubt some challenges for you.
Yeah, and I think I also felt that I needed to occupy the space that I'm occupying right now, to try and just have and I just make my contribution, you know, to this nation. I can tell you that I lived a very proud life before I joined the county government, and sometimes I'm really happy about what we did for the 1.5 years, but I think my life can be utilized better if I serve in different capacities and not necessarily serving as the CEC for education.
And so what is it that you're doing now that's perhaps related to education?
Right now I'm consulting for several people, and I'm also coming back to now really be the advocate that I am for the right to quality education of children. I've really received a lot of calls from parents telling me now the space that you are occupying really, you know, helped us, it benefited us so much. And I also got to a point where I was feeling that I needed to throw in my voice, you know, out there, like now what really we are doing. Because sometimes what happens, like what now the CS, you know, Amina is going through, the negative voices that you hear, you know, for people who probably do not understand the whole setup, have not sat on such policy tables and see the pain that probably government goes through to even implement a very genuine, you know, concept that would benefit so many people. So I feel I am more useful sitting in such spaces than probably serving as a CEC.
Well, can you share some of the challenges perhaps that you do experience in government? Because on one hand, it may be easy for critics to bash government and say, what are you doing? This is poorly planned. Where is the money? There is no will, and it's a situation riddled in corruption, without really knowing the difficulties that those in government do actually face.
One of the things I would really want to say is that there's a lack of progressives. You know, there's a lack of progressives in government. You know, people who would actually move with a subject and really move with it and achieve the results, and the results are here, and you know, you deliver the results because of probably sometimes the encumbrances that come with it, and so that is why you will find, for example, like when I was a CEC for education, some of the shocking things that I came across was that you know, when it is very clear in the Act, you know, that the county government is responsible for ECD. The county government of Nairobi was only doing 13,000 children in public schools, and nobody bothers to ask, where are the other children? Because according to the data that we have about 250,000 children of ECD going age. So you'd expect a situation where the government spends its whole day thinking about how do we expand the spaces, you know, how do we plan, so that by the time we're even presenting our budgets, there's coherence in terms of how the money you are asking for will lead to the various results. And sometimes you find that those spaces are not there, you know, and especially probably it's more unfortunate for county governments because they are not, you know, thoroughly, you know, structured. The structures are still growing. And so it might lead to some level of frustration because you're looking at the longer term of it in terms of by the time we are exiting in 5 years, for example, we will have said that as our county government, we have now 100,000 children who are attending our free ECD. But then somebody is interested in just some publicity. Let me say that my observation is that most of the county governments are doing projects that are campaign driven. Right. You know, a project that will lead to your fame. But the whole concept of the bigger good, because number one, it will not give you instant gratification, despite, you know, the value that it will bring. I honestly look back and I'm like, when I attend to those children, by the time I was leaving, we were 21 at 21,000, which is really good. But I think the pain that is involved in doing it, and you can see, and that is why I'm saying, look at what we are discussing now. When it is in black and white that the Constitution has told you that this is right. When we asked in 2003, because I was still doing a lot of advocacy, we were told by the Ministry of Education, this thing is progressive. You know, you don't achieve it overnight. Yeah. And I am asking, at 2019, do you want to tell us it is progressive? We will not achieve it overnight. Yeah. That means that government does not adjust. You don't report to your workstation to check. I mean, where are we? How can we move? How can we try and say that by this particular time, we have expanded ourselves this much. This is the plans that we are putting in place. The budgets that we have asked Parliament, for example, to approve will lead to this and this, you know, result. So I think sometimes it's not very easy, but that is why I'm really happy about the Ministry of Education, because for once, the Ministry of Education, after a very long time, is the one that is leading in terms of making headlines. Where are we taking? Where is the mission of education? Because I think before 2015, the Ministry of Education was just moving in whatever direction that it wanted to move. Right. But at least now we can actually be able to sit down and say, we have every child in school. I think the transition as per the CS, he was talking about 87%, which is really good and is really really commendable. And we support her and would want to say that moving forward, let all of us start thinking, the members of Parliament, these are your children. Yeah. The county governments, these are your children. How can all of us make sure they're not sitting under a tree? I am sure they can do a makeshift something so that all of us support this vision. Because I can tell you, the cost of having a standard 8 dropout to any particular county is very, 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 very expensive. You will try to do something with them later in life. And the only thing you will do probably is to buy for them a motorbike so that they can try and do a few other things. Right. But in terms of really structuring their lives, there is an opportunity that will have been missed, that there will come a time you will not do anything about it.
Okay, and there would be a regret. Do you think there is the will and commitment from the very top, though? Because if we look at the President's Big Four agenda, education is missing. We have enhancing manufacturing, we have food security and nutrition, universal health coverage and affordable housing. Why isn't education amongst the Big Four?
No, I think we've really done tremendous things in education. And for me, I think education is cross-cutting. For you to achieve that manufacturing, the education sits at the background of each and everything. And that is why I'm saying there are some people who I've seen parents here, and I would want to just support them by telling them it is not correct to judge a child that by the time they are at class 8, they do not want, they cannot proceed to secondary school. I think within the existing frameworks, we are not able to judge a child as at when they just do at class 8. And that is why the law has said, let everybody transit to secondary school, so that at least we have ample time, and the child also has time to be coached, to be led, to various. And then when they get to about 18 or 17 years, then we are able to say, you can go to this path, you can go at least as currently before we implement the new curriculum. And that's why I'm saying education sits at the background, even health. And when we were doing the education for all goals, the background is such that you are better off with an educated mother when you want to take them through antenatal clinics and everything. You're better off with an educated. You're better off to prevent malaria and even simple other things, typhoid and everything, with a mother that at least has completed basic education. Right. So probably it is not, education is left out. But I think if we followed the prescriptions that have been done for education and we do it well, education in Kenya is best placed now to support all these other factors. And I would say a lot of these things that you're seeing happening, I will tell you this because I've been around for a while, it cannot be possible if the president is not interested in it. Right. See all the congestion that you're seeing. We have been here where we tried to do something and then State House speaks. And he says, "Apana, hiyo mambo wacha ipole hapo." But I think this support coming from the head of state, telling the CS, go, so that then we can achieve this, no matter the complaints, because you're about to begin seeing, a lot of complaints. But I think we can do this if we did the primary school and we achieved even international acclaim. That look at Kenya, one day 1 million children came back to school. And for me, the biggest question I have for any critic out there, fine, I agree, the planning has not been very well. Yeah. I mean, let's call it. The planning has not been very well because it's not something we've done overnight. Right. It has been there existing in the books. Right. But let me ask anybody, which child would you prefer that they were home so that your child can get the space that probably they will need? Let us work together, and I'm expecting that the ministry will go by and by addressing the challenges, that are being raised by various stakeholders. And I would ask the ministry to agree that the challenges that will be raised by the teachers and every other fraternity are not in bad faith. Okay. It's just a dialogue to try and encourage all of us to move to a safer ground.
Okay. All right. Before we close and I get your final thoughts, let's just take the viewers back to Murang'a. Remember that at the top of this broadcast, NTV's Martin Mwara did say that he would be contributing to this conversation as well. He spoke to Anne Kilu. She is the County Director of Education in Murang'a. Let's listen in.
Ningependa kabisa kwanza niwashukuru wanafunzi ambao waliandika mtihani wa KCPE mwaka uliopita. Walikuwa 27, that is 27,000, na katika au 27,000 ambao wameweza kwenda kwa kidato cha kwanza shule ya sekondari ni 97%. Naweza kusema kwamba tumejitahidi kwa sababu tumeweza kufanya kazi, tumeshirikiana na other partners katika elimu. Hatufanyi peke yetu kama wizara. Tuna wengine ambao tunafanya kazi nao, tuko na ile Ministry ya Interior, tumeweza kufanya kazi pamoja na wao, tumeshirikiana kwamba ambapo tunaongea mpaka na machifu ambao wako pale katika kijiji na hizo mashule ziko kwa hizo vijiji. Tumeweza kuongea na chiefs through the county commissioner, deputy county commissioners, kwamba tuweze kuhakikisha watoto wote wametoka nyumbani wameenda kwa shule. Kwamba pia niseme tuko na pia sensitization meetings ambapo tumeongea na wazazi katika baraza za machiefs, tumeongelesha wazazi tukiwa na mkutano kama leo tuna mkutano. Pia tunaongea na walimu wetu. Wiki iliyopita tulikutana na walimu wa primary na tumewahimiza kwamba wahakikishe kwamba kila mtoto ambapo alifanya mtihani kwa kila mmoja wa shule yao wahakikishe kwamba ameanza kwenda kwa shule. Niseme kwamba pia Murang'a tuna bahati kwa sababu tuko na mashule, kwa jumla tuko na mashule 307. Out of 307 tuko na shule 216 ambazo ni za kukuja na kurudi nyumbani. That is the day schools. Na tunajua kwamba day schools ziko masomo imelipiwa na serikali. Ile kitu mzazi atatafuta ni uniform ya shule na mtoto aweze kwenda shuleni. Kwa hivyo kwa sababu tuko na hayo mashule, tumepata na hiyo nafasi kwamba kila mtoto anaweza kufikia shule. Ule hawezi kuweza kulipa ile karo ya boarding, basi tunamuhimiza kwamba aende kwa shule ya kwenda na kurudi nyumbani. Changamoto pia zipo, hasa pale kwa wazazi. Kwa sababu utapata wazazi wengine tu ni ile tu out of ignorance, ile kutojua tu, ambapo anafikiria mtoto akimaliza kidato cha 8 kwamba amemaliza shule. Kwa hivyo anasema mtoto amemaliza shule, wengine wanasema hawana uwezo. Lakini kwa sababu tumeweza kuwafikia hiyo changamoto, tumeweza kuitatua. Kwa sababu sasa tunawaambia hata kama una uwezo pia unaweza kwenda shule ya kwenda nyumbani, na ukienda shule unarudi nyumbani.
All right, so that was Anne Kilu, the County Director of Education in Murang'a County, speaking to NTV's Martin Mwara. All right, back in studio now. Before we close this broadcast, I'll get my guests' final thoughts on the issue of the 100% transition rate. Janet, first and foremost, what are perhaps the 3 top key things that need to happen immediately in order to improve the situation?
In the immediate term, we need infrastructural expansion. Really, we need schools to be put up, but then that cannot be an immediate thing, because probably there is budget issues and so on and so forth.
But planning for it can
we
be
don't
somewhat
we don't
immediate.
need to plan for it. We need to see partnerships being patched up now. We need to see the national government lobbying county governments, because I know they have money, they've got money, there's something they can do about it. We need the members of parliament. At least we need to see all those efforts pulling together.
So let me just interject there. If you know they have money and there is something they can do about it, why haven't they?
And this is what I am saying, that the Ministry of Education as the technical guide in all this. Sometimes, and I could tell you, and it has been seen, sometimes the county governments do what they think will work for them, but they have not been sensitized enough. Let's create these linkages, that investing in this today will give your own youth, because we have to look at it from a broader perspective. This is not only an education issue. Who are we dealing with here? We are dealing with young people. So if we are going to have a crisis in your county concerning the young people, please know it will come from there, under investment in the education sector. So it has to be looked at, at a broader spectrum, and not just the flimsy argument that it is not a national government, function. We need to see the county governments now investing more. We are saying that the county governments are the ones who are in charge of the technical, training institutions. Some of them are the village polytechnics. We need some audit. We need some lobbying. How much are you investing, in these subsectors, so that then the Ministry of Education is not overwhelmed in terms of saying that you had asked for because you also know that the country probably has resource constraints. But there are other partnerships that could come in very handy, even now, in the immediate term, and also the goodwill. The project needs to harvest a lot of goodwill, even from parents, because I can tell you the project is struggling from parents who think that school A is inferior as compared to school B. And so you have parents shunning a particular group of schools and wanting to flood, some particular schools. Let the parents be educated on the importance of this free-day secondary education. Surely, if you cannot afford boarding, facilities, and the government has provided free-day secondary education, why wouldn't you take your child to the, so there are those things that need to happen, and some of them do not even attract, a lot of resources. But I also need to say this: the Ministry of Education now more than ever needs to be vigilant on this question of levies, because internationally the biggest barrier to education is levies, more than anything else. And I know this is now the opportunity of people saying that because of the congestion, we want to put up this, we want to put up that, unless the Ministry of Education comes in to regulate. For example, I know of schools that have already called me and told me, Uko, we are being asked for 10,000 for Harambee. There is a child who is being sent home because there is a Harambee for 10,000. And I'm saying it is not the responsibility of parents to put up the infrastructure for schools. It is squarely the responsibility of government, and therefore the Ministry of Education needs to give a guidance. For example, in about 2015, the ministry had guided that you cannot ask for over and above, I think it was 4,000 shillings in Harambee. Why are we saying this? It is the understanding that a majority of Kenyans are struggling with poverty. Yes. And that 10,000 that you would ask for so casually, there is an entire family who in a whole 5 months will not touch 10,000 shillings. Yeah. So that when you're chasing the child to go and collect 10,000, you don't know the damage that you're doing to those children. And that is why you will see so many parents, your child has been called to school A, but because you think it is a very expensive school, so you move your child from that school to a day school, and you don't know that you're messing, the capabilities of your child, you're messing up with their levels of exposure and so on. So I think it is now that the Ministry of Education should come in very strongly and give guidelines and regulate how much can be asked for in Harambee, for example. Because I am not saying that maybe schools will not need to ask for a few shillings here and there. Because as we say, this right to education for all will be achieved progressively. But we need to be guided so that then we don't have a very good project like this one being messed up by lack of regulation. And finally, I would say this, and I would probably believe that I'm talking to the Ministry of Education. No parent will consciously make a decision not to educate their child. I think there is consensus in the country that education is a good thing. The thing that makes people not take their children to school is the cost of secondary education. Let's not look at the cost that is written on the paper. Can we think about the cost of uniform? Can we think about the cost of all the lists of things that are asked at school level, and probably want to give a guidance on it?
Okay, it all of course does add up at the end of the day.
Sure.
All right, Janet, well, as always, pleasure to have you with us in studio. Thanks for your contribution. Would you ever be interested in working for the Ministry of Education?
It's an awesome opportunity to implement the policies that I so
that you feel so strongly about. Right, okay. All right, well, we will keep an eye on that. But Janet, thanks again for joining us on NTV today. With me in studio, Janet Oko, the former Nairobi County Education CEC, speaking to me about the 100% transition rate in schools. And also earlier in this broadcast, we were joined by Omboko Milemba, the MP for Emuhaya, and he's also the national chair of COPET. You've been watching NTV today. We've been live from the county of Uasin Gishu with NTV's Lois Wangoi in Eldoret. We've also been live with NTV's Martin Mwara in Murang'a, and also with Bernard Ojwang in Migori County, and also NTV's Oka Okusa. He came to us live from the county of Busia, where some head teachers from the private sector are having a meeting to discuss the very same thing, the 100% transition policy. Of course, it has raised plenty of concerns. There are numerous challenges facing it, and that is what we have discussed on the show today. Okay, well, that is where we leave it. Thanks for your company. I'm Smriti Vidyarthi. Do join me at 1.